Hello, friends. I'm Anderson Marchak,
And I'm Ricardo Segura.
and we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
Welcome to the panel.
We are continuing with our highlighting the filmography of one of our favorite directors, the boss, Zack Snyder.
Yeah, boy.
And we have now arrived at Sucker Punch. And Sucker Punch was released March 25th of 2011.
Mhm.
And it was Zack's first true original movie.
Yes.
Up until then, he had been doing properties, something based on something else. He did a remake of Dawn of the Dead, Romero's Dawn of the Dead. He did an adaptation of the 300 comic book, and he did an adaptation of the Watchmen comic book. So um, he was able to pitch this idea, and um, oh boy, was it an idea!
But I'm telling you, this is another one of those movies that I've heard people say when they first saw it,
Yeah,
they were like, it was fine. And then they watch it again and they're like, wait a minute, there's something in here.
yeah.
Hmm. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So, we get a lot of signature Zack Snyder moments in this movie, a lot of signature Zack Snyder music. It's a lot.
Before we even start, I will say that it
Yeah.
feels like this movie is the closest thing to like what a Zack Snyder highlight reel is.
Yeah.
It is 100% from beginning to end, from the shots to this the cinematography and the visual effects. Like this thing is an extravaganza of just so much coming together that I was like, this is just literally Zach going, you kind of want an idea of what I'm about.
Right.
Here's what it is.
Absolutely. And let's just get into it here. Let's go for it.
Let's go.
So, um we get an opening scene. It's another trademark Zack Snyder thing, just a just introducing to us to our lead character, uh, who will come to know as Babydoll.
Yep.
It's Emily Browning. And in the background, we're hearing Sweet Dreams, a cover
Yep.
of the Eurythmics song. And Emily Browning is singing it. She's on the soundtrack. Let's not try to divert too much here, but he had a lot of the actors sing on the soundtrack too, which was
Yes.
really cool.
Yes.
So she's singing in the background here. And Baby Doll, unfortunately, is committed to um, I'm not going to use the words that I saw written here, but a mental health facility, so to speak.
Hmm.
And this is because of her stepfather. And what unfortunately happens is her stepfather is an abusive person. He he kills their mother, and um attempting to well, it's not really clear if he's been doing it or not been doing it, but apparently he's been, abusing the girls as well. Um, you know, Baby Doll and her sister. And once the mother is dead, it's almost like she's not there anymore to protect them. If that was or was not happening, we don't know.
Yeah.
So it's heavily hinted that it was, though,
Yeah.
that it was happening, unfortunately. So um, to you know, he locks her in the bedroom. He goes for her sister, her younger sister, might I add, awful.
Yep. Yep.
And she breaks out. She finds a gun, and in trying to shoot him, she accidentally shoots her own sister,
Yeah.
killing her. He's scared. He gets out of the room. She's in tears because she can't believe what she just did. He calls the police. He's able to orchestrate this whole thing where he bribes the people to blame everything on, on Baby Doll.
Hmm.
And, they kind of just, to kind of certify her as not mentally fit, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
which is why she needs to go into this mental health facility. And Blue is the person at the asylum, and he has to forge a signature from the psychiatrist Vera Gorski in order to have Babydoll lobotomized because he wants to keep her quiet so she can never
Yep.
speak about the fact that he was abusing them and that that the mother's death wasn't an accident, that he killed her, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Babydoll apparently has um, to take note of items she's going to need to escape, and that's where she slips into a fantasy realm now. This is one level down. We're going into
Mm-hmm.
Inception a little bit here.
Yes, we are. Yes,
So
we
the
are.
real world is where all this unfortunate stuff happened. She's in a mental health facility, but now we go one level down into a fantasy world where they're in a brothel, and all the women there are performers, and the brothel is owned by Blue, and he's a gangster, so to speak. And instead of patients in the asylum, in this world, they're all performers and sex workers, so to speak.
Yeah.
But not of their free will. They don't have the freedom to leave, unfortunately.
No.
So we want to be clear about that. Babydoll becomes friends with uh, other women there. We have Amber, uh, played by, I want to say, Jamie Chung.
Mm-hmm.
We have, excuse me one second here. We have Blondie, played by Vanessa Hudgens.
That's your girl,
That is
boy.
my girl.
That's your girl.
That is my girl. I really like her.
Yep.
We have Rocket, played by Jenna Malone.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Sweet Pea, played by Abby Cornish,
Mm-hmm.
who is supposedly the star,
Yeah.
because within these performances, all of the women come together to put on these shows. It's a burlesque type deal for all the patrons that come in. So they're always rehearsing and stuff like that, dancing and such. Blue lets Babydoll know that we're just getting right into it right now. That they get to find out she's a virgin, so her virginity is on sale for a client known as the High Roller, a mysterious
Mm-hmm.
person. And in the real world, he is the doctor that is right about to perform the lobotomy on Babydoll. So that's where we get the connection. To introduce us to this, well, not yet, but to give us a nice a second opening, so to speak, to everyone at at the burlesque house. We get a performance from Carla Gugino. There she is again, as
Love her.
as Gorski, and a young Oscar Isaac. I say young; he was in his 30s, early 30s at the time. Virtually unknown, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And they perform "Love Is the Drug." Let me just tell you, not only did Carla Gugino sing this, but she sang it in a Russian accent,
Yeah,
or
she did.
was it Polish? I forget. I don't know if it specified her ethnicity here, but she did sing it with an accent. So I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was pretty impressive. He sang it. They performed this dance. It's really cool. Nice throwback here. We get to a rehearsal, um, and Dr. Gorski says something. She says, "If you do not dance, you have no purpose." And we don't keep things here that have no purpose. You see, your fight for survival starts right now. You don't want to be judged. You won't be. You don't think you're strong enough? You are. You're afraid? Don't be. You have all the weapons you need. Now fight.
Yep.
Great line.
Fight. It's such a good line.
to kind of see what Baby Doll can do and contribute to being at the burlesque house, which we need to remind everybody, these women are not there of their own free will. They're
No.
they're basically slaves, but in order to continue living, they have to do what they have to do, So she has Baby Doll perform a erotic dance, so to speak, and she just starts swaying, and then we get transported to another level down,
Yep.
an imaginary fantasy world. And this fantasy world, which is another level down, will be different every time we go there. It's the fantasy world that Baby Doll's mind goes to within this fantasy world, whenever she has to dance.
Yes.
Mind-boggling.
It was really cool because it was a great choice in my opinion for Zack Snyder to say we're not going to give anybody the satisfaction of
Right.
seeing these women have to dance erotically for the pleasure of someone else against their will. We're not doing that. So he allowed this form of escapism to show them, and what you're about to talk about, Baby Doll as this BA warrior,
Oh.
just fighting in some of the best visual scenes, and it's just great. But I love that aspect of what he does in these scenes going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when I first saw the movie, I was a little upset because they dropped these lines about the dancing and about how Baby Doll was so good at dancing. I'm just like, well, we never got to see it. Why would you drop those lines? But there's a point to it,
Yep.
So during her first dance, her audition, so to speak, she's fantasizing about being in feudal Japan and meeting the wise man. And I want to say his name. His name is Scott Glenn as the wise man.
Yes, sir.
Great role, by the way.
Dude, he's great. He's in so much. He's great.
Yeah. And he lets Baby Doll know. Well, he gives her weapons, a sword and some guns. And he tells her she's going to need some items in order to escape because she's trying to escape the burlesque house. And then, well, obviously it's too late for her to escape the real world, but in the fantasy world, in the burlesque house, she's trying to escape. So this is like a metaphor, so to speak. And she's going to need a map, fire, a knife, and a key. And there's also a fifth item, but it's going to require a deep sacrifice. It's a secret.
Mm-hmm.
And but it will bring a perfect victory. That's what he tells her. So she then goes on to fight 3 samurais that are huge.
Giant samurais, my boy.
Wild. Absolutely wild. And I like that she took them on one at a time because the odds were already against her because she's this little tiny person compared to like these giant bosses. It's like playing a video game where the boss is the size of the screen and you're this small, She takes them on. The first one she takes out, great fight. The second one made me pop in the movie theater because he fired like a cannon at her. And it was like a rocket, like an RPG. But then you notice that was just the starting shot. He has a Gatling gun, a minigun.
Gatling gun, yup.
Like that's old school. They call it a minigun now, but we call it a Gatling gun because we first saw it in Predator.
Yes. Yep.
And it made me pop because it made me think about Predator. It was really cool. And I wonder if it was a shout out to Predator.
Hey,
because
you never know, man, because that was a very specific weapon that you would never see a samurai use, right? Like when you think samurai, you don't think that, but he was like, nope, I got this big
and
sucker.
we've seen it in other movies, and we don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've seen in video games all the time. She defeats that one, and then the last one's a very quick fight for the third one. She takes the third one down. So, after the fight is over, that fantasy's done. She comes back to the real world. The dance is over with. People are clapping. Blue is impressed. So is the people observing. Okay, so we're in it now at this point.
Yep.
Even though Baby Doll is the new girl, she convinces the 4 other young women to join her to escape the brothel.
Yep.
And even though she's quote unquote new to it, she says because everyone's so enamored with her dancing that she should be able to distract everybody to get the items that they need in order to escape.
Yeah.
So we're not going to go too far into it, but during these dances, she keeps going to these fantasy realms, and the fantasy realms are different every single time.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, it's a World War I German soldiers, and that's to get the map now.
Yeah.
And it's going to be mirrored by Sweet Pea copying the map of the institution and Blue's office
Mm-hmm.
in in uh, in um in the real world, so to speak. So, in the fantasy realm of them facing the German soldiers, just you know,
Dude, it's good.
yeah,
It's good.
they're going at it with them, and to kind of avoid the R rating, you see air coming out of them when they're slicing them, and
Yeah,
they're,
because
they're zombies, I believe they're undead.
they're undead and they have like these breathing apparatuses and whatnot. Every time they get shot, you just see air escaping and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then same thing with the samurai.
Mm-hmm.
Light would beam out of them when they got cut. Like we don't see any red blood at any time in this movie most of the time. And I'm assuming that's to avoid the R rating,
Yeah.
So I believe this was PG-13.
I think so, but we
Please
can
look that
check.
up for me while I'm
We
checking
can
here.
check.
I mean, even though we watched
The director's cut.
the director's cut, so
I think the original theatrical, we're gonna look that up.
yeah.
I also liked when she was fighting the samurai. When she fights each samurai, she gets better as she progresses. So the first one she had a hard time with, and then she has a little bit more of an easier time with the second, and by the third time, she's practically Neo for the Matrix, where she just waits for him and then she just flies
Right.
and does it in one shot.
Yeah, she
And
already
I'm like,
knows that she can do it at this point.
yep. And I was
So
like, all right, that's pretty good. All right, where are you?
so the next time she has to dance, they have to storm an orc-infested castle, and we're like in the Lord of the Rings world right now, Middle Earth. This is to get the fire. In order to get the fire, she has to get two crystals that can produce the fire. And in the fantasy world, well, we'll say the quote unquote real world,
Mm-hmm.
um, well, the burlesque world, so to speak, it's going to be Amber, Jamie Chung stealing a lighter from the mayor.
Okay.
So that's what's happening there. While in the fantasy world, she's doing that. So thank you for that. So it was PG-13.
PG-13.
Appreciate that. Thank you. So, the I'll call it the Lord of the Rings. That's the only the way I can do it. I mean, they look just like the orcs look just like from
They're
Lord of the Rings.
orcs. When I was watching it again,
Yeah.
I was like, those are orcs. I was like, those are 100% orcs.
Right. Right. So, they take out all the orcs. They get to it's a baby dragon, and unfortunately, she has to cut the baby dragon's throat, pull the crystals out, boom, fire. Mama dragon comes in. They got to defeat that dragon too. Real big spectacle of a scene.
It's amazing. That whole scene with the airplane being chased by the dragon and whatnot. Amazing scene.
Right. The next time they have to do a distraction, in the fantasy world, it's going to be fighting like robot apocalypse. I'm assuming this is like we're going to call it, on a train to disarm a bomb. And this is a representative in the burlesque world, the brothel world, so to speak, where Sweet Pea is stealing a kitchen knife from the cook.
Yep.
And the last fantasy is see here. What ends up happening is they're distracting the cook with a dance or whatever, but unfortunately, it's not perfect. And you know, in the fantasy realm, Sweet Pea almost gets hit by the bomb. And in the real life, they mirror that. Well, not the real life, but in the brothel world, that's mirrored by the cook going to stab them because he's being tricked or whatever. And he actually ends up stabbing Rocket,
Yeah.
Sweet Pea's sister, unfortunately, trying to protect her sister. So that was just like a Cliff Notes version of all the fantasy worlds that we went through there. So we're going to move back here a little bit here, or move forward, so to speak. Blondie is upset. This is Vanessa Hudgens. She's upset because, I mean, they're all like scared. They want to do this because they're trying to break out, you know? And Gorski sees, Blondie crying, and, she convinces her to say what's going on. And unfortunately, like, Blue's overhearing everything. And then he walks in and he's like, oh, well, you can tell me, you know?
Yep.
After Rocket, dies, he locks Sweet Pea in a closet and to confront the other young women. And it's revealed he finds out about the plan and about all the items that they're trying to get to break out. He shoots Amber as punishment for participation in the plan. And he shoots Blondie for being a snitch.
Yep.
Awful.
It's just like, oh yeah, like you got to go for participating, and you, thanks for coming forward with the information, but we don't like snitches, and he shoots her right then and there.
Her. Awful. He attempts to sexually assault Babydoll, but she stabs him with the kitchen knife that they had already stolen, and she gets the master key from him, which is one of the items they needed to get. She frees Sweet Pea, and they were able to start a fire to create that huge distraction while they're trying to get out. And a bunch of men are blocking their way. And then they're trying to decide, well, how do I get out? Because this fifth item. And then she's remembering what the wise man told her. And then eventually it was just like, let's go through those items again. They've used everything already, the map, fire, knife, and a key. And the last item will require a deep sacrifice and would bring a perfect victory. So already we've had loss. 3 of the girls have died, and they don't know what's going to happen to them now. And then it hits her. I'm the fifth item. I'm the secret. I'm not meant to leave. Sweet Pea is so she can go back to her mother. Because unfortunately her sister died, Rocket. But at least Sweet Pea's still alive, and she can go back to mom because mom's still alive,
Yeah.
So Babydoll goes outside, and she distracts all the patrons outside, so Sweet Pea can sneak out through the fence, so to speak, the gate, and we move forward with the plot a little bit. So a lot's happened up until this point. We get to meet the High Roller now.
Yep.
And Babydoll's virginity was sold to this High Roller. So we don't like this guy because of what, what he's paid for. And I'm not going to recite everything he said, but some of the things that say, it's John Hamm we don't like him because of why he's there, but he just charms her with his lines. I don't, what is the one thing everybody wants? And she said love. And he said, but I don't seek love, I seek truth, and I want truth from you. I want you to be present with me for this moment, and not just this moment, because I can grant you freedom from this place,
Yeah.
not just one night with me, so to speak. And he absolutely delivers. Um, you kind of, I don't want to say forgive him for what what he's doing, but in a way, it's like, well, in this world, I guess Babydoll is going to have her freedom,
Mm-hmm.
in the brothel world, because she had to give up a lot, but apparently the high roller is promising to grant her freedom for her sacrifice. So I thought that was of note. Um, we go back up to the real world now. We're done with all the fantasy worlds. We're done with the brothel
Yep.
world.
Yep. We're out of limbo.
You know, we're back in the asylum, and just as this interaction has happened, I can grant you freedom. Um, we see the lobotomy; it's
Yep.
performed, and John Hamm, as the doctor, he does it on Baby Doll. Um, Gorski comes in. Um, we find out that, you know, up until this moment, we find out apparently Baby Doll stabbed an orderly. She started a fire and helped another girl escape the asylum. So mirroring what happened in the brothel world. And Ham, as the surgeon, he's asking Gorski why she authorized the procedure. She's like, "No, I didn't do it."
Mm-hmm.
Get to find out her signature is forged. She calls the police, and we get to find out, Blue um, is the one behind this. And Blue is the orderly. He's about to try to assault Baby Doll, which once again mirrors what he did in the brothel world. But, you know, who's to say that he hasn't been doing this with the other patients as well?
Yeah.
And it was a very wild moment because, as it's different for every single situation. I want to be careful how I say this. It's different for every single situation. But for Blue in this world, it wasn't worth assaulting Baby Doll if she was just an empty shell,
Mm-hmm.
and once the lobotomy happened, she was an empty shell. So he couldn't, gain power or gratification
Yeah.
from that, Um, but in any case, at this point, he's found out, everything that he's done. They take him away, and then you kind of see like a little smile on Baby Doll's face. Um, we see Sweet Pea stop by the police as she's trying to board a bus. And at this point, it's kind of bled. It's like it's the brothel world and the asylum world together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she makes it to the bus, and the bus driver, who's the wise man again, um, the police, they were looking for somebody, and it's like, oh, that woman's been on you know, this bus the whole time.
Yep.
So Sweet Pea gets her happy ending, and we get a nice closing monologue from Sweet Pea, who honors those we love with the very life we live, who sends monsters to kill us, and at the same time sings that we'll never die, who teaches us what's real and how to live at lies, who decides why we live and what we'll die to defend, who chains us and who holds the key to set us free. It's you. You have all the weapons you need. Now fight.
Now fight.
That was the end of the
It's
movie.
so, it's so good. This movie again, it's on the surface level, you see a lot of great visual effects that are fantastic, right? A lot of great fantasy sequences, like the train and the robots is probably one of my favorites. And you see all this great stuff, and then obviously you have the limbo of the fantasies and whatnot. And like for me, there's quite a few things to dig into. Like I
Right.
was one of those people. I was one of those people that the first time we really get to meet Sweet Pea is when they're doing a like dramatization of Baby Doll getting lobotomized. So you see Sweet Pea in the Baby Doll hair. She's got the blonde hair wig and the pigtails, and she's like, really? This is what we're doing?" And she takes it off. And I always saw that as like, okay, so Baby Doll in this moment of being lobotomized is coming up with these fantasies to kind of
Right.
take over those horrible memories that she's had over the last few days of being in this asylum. So like you're getting all these great visual stuff, but there's something else that's happening underneath. You know what I mean? And like I don't know, I appreciated that instead of it just being a highlight reel of great action sequences and whatnot, there was a story about a girl using fantasy as escapism, but a girl using that escape to, kind of shield her away from all those painful memories and whatnot and being there because like was said, she did do some things while she was there. She started a fire, she
Yeah.
helped someone escape, she stabbed an orderly. Those things happened, right? Those things happened while she was there, but she created these fantasies to kind of block out those horrible acts and how they might have actually transpired by being, a warrior with
Right.
her friends and whatnot and everything else. And at the end of the day, like I'm what dude, I keep saying it. I'm like, yo, Sweet Pea and Baby Doll are the same person. Like I keep
It's a
thinking
good
that.
theory.
I'm like, they're the same person. When we first meet Sweet Pea, she has Baby Doll's hair, but she takes it off. She's kind of like,
Right.
she's kind of Baby Doll's emotional sanity, which is why she sets her free, but she has to be lobotomized to do so. She's created these fantasies and this
Right.
escapism, and she's like, I have to let you go now to so that way I can be lobotomized and just those are my closing memories is my freedom, but
Right.
it's essentially
Right.
just getting rid of all that
And
stuff.
Sweet Pea's sister dies in the same way Baby Doll's sister dies, you know?
Yes, yes, and it was
So
and it's sad because Baby Doll inadvertently kills her sister, but in her
right.
fantasy, her sister actually dies for her, like, it's like the sacrifice.
Right.
So it's almost like taking that memory of like, "Oh my god, I killed my sister," and creating a fantasy that says, "No, my sister died protecting me, like, she died fighting for me," so, like, she takes the knife from the chef because Sweet Pea's gonna take it, and Rocket goes no, and Rocket jumps in front of it and takes the stab. So it's really sad. It's really
Right.
sad.
Right. And in that artistic, choice there that Sweet Pea is now free, maybe Baby Doll could only truly be free through that lobotomy,
Yeah, yeah,
and that she could only be one with her mother again through that lobotomy, and hopefully she doesn't, remember it anything much longer. She doesn't know how much time she has left, and it's just such a sad thing because you're thinking, um, if they had only gotten there sooner, the lobotomy wouldn't have happened,
yeah.
and who knows? Who
But
knows if she could have
there's
achieved what she wanted to do without having the lobotomy. So,
exactly, because there's a moment where John Hamm's character, when he says it, after he gives her the lobotomy, he questions the other nurses, like, "Did you see that? Did you see her eyes?" It was almost like a look of acceptance, like she wanted me to do
right,
it because that was her escape.
right,
So, like, the mind that she's now trapped in isn't full of those horrendous memories. It's those new fantasies that she's created
correct.
while she's been there.
That's a
That's where
great
she
take.
is now.
Yeah,
So that's why she's kind of like, "Yes, I'm ready. Now you do it. Do it now."
right,
I've saved that part of my mind of Sweet Pea. She's escaped. She's gonna go be with her mother. My sister sacrificed herself for me. I was able to save this person. I'm a warrior. I'm a fighter. This is when you take it because that's the fantasy I'm going to be in for the rest of my life. And it's a sad ending, but it's her freedom. That's how she
correct.
gained her freedom.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great take, and, it takes many rewatches before you finally get that, that
Yeah,
that's one and that's one interpretation, you
Yeah,
know?
there's quite a few because that I went online to see what other people thought, and there's quite a few different interpretations, but that's always been mine. Like mine has always been Sweet Pea is another branch of Baby Doll, which is why she has her hair, which is why she's kind of the leader. She has the younger sister. She's able to
Yeah,
help her escape, but her body has to stay
there's a lot of
behind.
mirrors there, but
Yes, there's a lot.
it works. Um, you said that the robots was probably your favorite sequence. Um, I'm big on introductions, so for
Mhm.
me, it was the samurai.
It's
Like,
cool, man.
we go right into that world, you don't know what the heck is happening, this young woman, this small petite woman just destroys these things, you know? It's,
Yeah.
um, it's wild. Um, we're just gonna go down the cast here. We have Emily Browning as Babydoll,
Yep.
and I don't wanna spend too much time on this here, but, um, in the casting, apparently, it was supposed to be Amanda Seyfried,
I remember hearing this.
but she had other commitments, and unfortunately, she couldn't do it, and, that's of note because Emily Browning sang a lot of the songs on the album too,
Mhm.
and Amanda Seyfried's had an incredible career. She's done Mamma Mia, she's done quite a few movies, she's had some awards-worthy roles on television as well, like, she's done really well for herself, she didn't really miss out, so to speak. I mean, it's just a big what if, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we have Abby Cornish as Sweet Pea, Jenna Malone as Rocket, Vanessa Hudgens as Blondie, and Jamie Chung as Amber. An all-woman-led leads, Let's go. Let's go.
I love it. I love it. I remember just watching them in the trailers, and they were all walking with
It's really
armor
cool.
and weapons and swords and guns, and I remember being like, "That looks cool." You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Swordplay and gunplay mixed together way
Mm.
before John Wick, you know?
Yeah.
It was really cool. It was really cool. Almost like, it made me think of Devil May Cry, the video game
It
series.
it a lot of it felt like a video game.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, "You have to get these items, you have to beat these bosses, you gotta go here, you gotta
Yeah.
do that, you got these weapons," and I was like, "This feels like levels of a video game," and I know there was some, commentary on that, on video games and how men perceive women in video games and whatnot, and again, I love that Zach, instead of showing what essentially you would expect, he was like, "No, I'm going to make these BA women go out there and clean house," and it was
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. Um, we have Carla Gugino as Gorski, Oscar Isaac as Blue, John Hamm as the Doctor on the High Roller, and Scott Glenn as the Wise Man. Now, I look at this cast, and as of this recording, it's early 2023.
Mhm.
Um, at the time, this was probably the best role for a lot of these young women because they were all up and comers.
Yeah.
Since then, I think most of them have gone to do some great things over the years. Um, the leads, anyway.
Mhm.
I don't.
Oscar Isaac blew up.
Yes, he did.
A lot of them did really
He
well.
did. And Carla Gugino, she's done incredible things over the years. But as far as the women go, I think they've all done other things that more than likely have surpassed these roles.
Mhm.
You know, as far as that goes. Um, but at the time, you probably could have said this was Emily Browning's best role at the time. Um, Abby Cornish, she's been in things here and there.
Yeah.
Jenna Malone, she's been in a lot of things, so I don't think I would say that for her.
Jenna's
Vanessa,
been a lot.
yeah, Vanessa Hudgens probably at the time, and Jamie Chung probably at the time. But since then they've gone on to do other things that some would consider have probably surpassed those these roles here. Um,
Mhm.
I did want to give a shout out to John Hamm though. I feel like just the smoothness of the high roller, that's where
Mhm.
he shines.
Yeah.
And I know you haven't seen it yet, but there was a Fletch remake, and it's kind of like that same type of character again. Just that smooth, debonair guy, just really smooth guy, um, is where John Hamm shines. So we got to see a little bit here, but it's just that character from Mad Men.
Yeah.
He's just
Yeah.
really good at
Yeah.
it. He's really good at it. Um, you touched on it a little bit there. Um, with, video games and consumption and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and this would not be the last time Zach, gets criticized for his intentions. Um, so apparently, for some people, when they saw Sucker Punch, This was female empowerment because we have all
Mhm.
young women in the leads. And while we've had solo led women movies and women action movies, um, as far as an ensemble cast, not too much heard of,
Yeah.
to my understanding. So, um, I mean, we can talk about Alien,
Mhm.
Terminator. We've seen plenty of women-led movies. Action stars. But as far as women ensemble cast, I can't name too many.
And they were
So
very young too, and
they
that's
were all
they were
young.
they were they were
Most
very
of them were in their
young, you know.
20s still. Yeah,
For a lot of people, Jamie Chung was still the girl from Real World.
yeah,
For a lot of people, Vanessa Hudgens was High School Musical still.
correct.
So to see them in these roles among each other, and like when you see these girls in interviews and whatnot, like Zach obviously saw something and then was like, "No, you guys can do these roles. You guys can be this active action, adrenaline, layered, full of depth characters," and it was great seeing it.
Yeah. Um, Emily Browning was in a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah, you see what
She
I'm
was
saying?
she was in
Like,
Lemony Snicket's, yeah.
t-
So
yeah.
yeah, so definitely a thing from Zach there. So unfortunately, Zach was accused of exploiting them
Hmm.
because of how they were dressed, because of the brothel scenario, because of the dancing, whatever that we never get to see,
Yeah.
um, just for various reasons. And I found a little snippet here, and he says everything in the movie is about a show within a show within a show. Someone asked me, why did you dress the girls like that in those provocative costumes? And I said, well, think about it for a second. I didn't dress those girls in the costume. The audience dressed those girls. And when I say the audience, I mean the audience that comes to the movies. Just like the men who visit a brothel, they dress the girls when they go to see these shows as however they want to see them. But my hope was that they would take those things back, just like my girls hopefully get confidence. They get strength through each other, that those become power icons.
Hmm.
So, um, a lot of people don't buy this explanation, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's totally fine. I've heard it from him. I've
Right.
also heard it from the cast, Jenna Malone and Emily Brown, that
Yes.
both stood
It
up
was
and said this.
empowering to them
It
being in
was
this movie.
empowering.
Right, right, and despite the outfits they had to wear, despite the scenario of the brothel, they felt empowered from leaning on one another, which is so
Hmm.
cool.
And they both, I remember watching the interview and they were asked, like, did you guys feel comfortable in that attire? And they said it was kind of the point. It's kind of the message that we were saying, that like when you play video games, this is what they design girls to be wearing and whatnot, and this is how they perceive women in these type of games. So, and in movies and in stuff. So to hear the actors talking about it and saying, yeah, we understood it, we appreciated it, it was empowering because we leaned on each other. This is how the world dresses us. This is how the world puts us into these fantasies, and we were going to own it, and we were going to make it our own and lean on each other for strength and power. And it was cool. It was great. And again, like you said, there's some people that aren't going to buy it, and that's completely fine. um I heard him, but as much as I heard him, I really appreciated the actors like Emily and Jenna coming out and speaking up, saying this is how we felt about it, because they're the ones that are essentially in it, you know what I mean, and they're the
Right.
ones that have to portray these characters. So when they spoke up, I was like, okay, I really vibe with what they're saying.
Alright, so I wanted I went into the Wikipedia. There was a couple things here I thought that were really interesting.
Hmm.
Um, Evan Rachel Wood, your girl from True Blood and from,
Yeah.
what was it, Westworld?
Westworld.
She was supposed to play Rocket,
Okay.
but obviously she was replaced by Jenna Malone. And, Emma Stone was supposed to play Amber,
Oh man, imagine.
but she had a conflict with the movie Easy A, so that went to
Okay.
Jamie Chung. And, apparently True Blood and, Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark, the production live production was why, uh, Evan Rachel Wood, couldn't be in the movie as well.
Okay.
Um, Frida Pinto, remember her from
Mhm.
Slumdog Millionaire?
Yes, I do.
She was also considered for Amber, but that went to Jamie Chung. So a lot of what ifs there, and we already mentioned Amanda Seyfried. She was going to play Babydoll, but due to a movie conflict, it was Red Riding Hood, if I'm not mistaken. That's why she couldn't do it as well. So let's take a look at some of the standout lines here.
Mhm.
Um, in the beginning, I recall Dr. Gorski saying, "It's like we talked about you. You control this world. Let the pain go. Let the hurt go. Let the guilt go. What are you imagining right now? That the world you control, that place can be as real as any pain." In a humorous line, Sweet Pea, after Baby Doll dances for the first time, she says, "All that gyrating and moaning, a dance uh, should be more than about titillation. Mine's personal. It says who I am. What the heck does yours say?"
Yeah.
And Baby Doll says, "It says I'm going to escape from here. I'm going to be free."
Yep.
Really cool line. Excuse me.
Yeah. There's good stuff in there, and the one from uh Carla's character really hits me the most is when, she's like, "You have these, just fight."
Yeah, it's really cool. Um, the wise man has so many good lines throughout the whole movie. He always drops these one-liners before he says, "Oh, and another thing," and then he gives them
Yeah.
some advice. But the cliche lines, which I enjoyed, I eat them up. It's nostalgia. You know, in one of the fantasies, he says, "This is your journey. If you succeed, it will set you free." And another one, he says, "If you don't stand for something, you'll fall
You'll
for
fall for
anything."
anything.
It's
Yep.
great. Um, Remember, don't ever write a check with your mouth that you can't cash with butt with your
Yeah.
butt. Remember, don't ever write a check with your mouth that you can't cash with your butt. And he doesn't say butt, but uh, you know. And for
Profanity.
yeah. We're trying to keep things as clean as long as possible so we can get picked up by we can get more subscribers and stuff like that, guys, and not be blocked. So that's why we do that. Um, uh, for those who fight for it, life has the flavor the sheltered will never know. And then at the very end, oh, and another thing, um, oh, for Sweet Pea when he was covering for her, he says, "Oh, and another thing for the last time, she's been a joy the entire journey." So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
So he's talking about Sweet Pea, but he's also talking about Baby Doll as well. She's
Yep.
been a joy the entire time. It's really cool. Um, there's definitely a lot to unpack with this movie.
There's a lot.
It's Zach would go on to direct Army of the Dead
Mhm.
in 2021. Um, it's considered a spiritual sequel to Dawn of the Dead, but technically speaking, it's his only other full length original movie.
Yeah.
And Zach's great with all these properties, and we're just scratching the surface. We're going to get to the DCEU soon. Um, what are your thoughts on this as his first true original, and how he sold the studio on this, and how he got the budget? Like,
It's
wow.
crazy. It's crazy because I think that he was in a position where they felt pretty confident in what he was doing. Again, 300 was just, you know what I mean? Like 300 was out there. Dawn of the Dead was out there. And I
Right.
think I think the studio started to be a little more confident in him. Um, and getting the opportunity to do Sucker Punch again, like you said, it was pretty much from his mind. Like he wrote this, and he did the story and the script, and I don't know how he pitched it because, like you said, you're talking about a fantasy within fantasy within fantasy. You're talking about layers, and you're talking about, like, I can imagine him sitting there and pitching these fantasy scenes with giant samurai and zombie soldiers and robots and dragons and going, wait a minute, what's the context of this movie? And I don't know how he pitched it, But at the end of the day, I appreciate the movie for what it is, because again, I think to a lot of people you can watch and see, oh look, it's visually appealing, but there's nothing else. And I tend to disagree and say, no, there's quite a bit there. And it's, again, the first time I saw it, I think I was just kind of blown away visually by what I had seen. I didn't really grasp anything just yet. And it took a couple rewatches and I was just like, oh man, like for a first outing, for him not adapting anything, I thought it was pretty decent. I enjoyed it for his first outing. And again, because a lot of things he's been adapting, older material and whatnot. Dawn of the Dead was written by James Gunn. And then obviously he's doing Watchmen. He did 300, both came from graphic novels.
Right.
And even, some stuff afterwards with comic book movies, but this was his baby. Like, this was his baby. And I like the idea that Zack Snyder said, for my first baby, for a movie that I'm making for my mind, I want strong female leads. I want
Yeah.
a multi-woman cast. I want a way to kind of throw things back at people. You know what I mean? Zach has that thing that we talk about where he likes to dissect things, and he does that in here too. He's dissecting like a large group of people who view women in a certain way, and he doesn't allow you to see them that way anymore and see them differently, and he gives them power and whatnot. And I really appreciate that. Again, something so small. Another director might have shown these women dancing provocatively
Correct.
and sexually and everything else, which would have garnered an argument. But Zach was like, I'm not giving that. He
Right.
goes, no, I'm going to show you their escape, where they go, so they don't have to endure that almost like secondhand that embarrassment, that just being uncomfortable. He's, I'm not going to give you that. And I appreciated that, and he showed it in a way that I thought was respectful, in my opinion, to be like, hey, no, we're not going to use these women that way.
Right.
And I like the idea of when directors kind of throw things at the audience. I appreciate that, because sometimes we don't even notice it ourselves. Sometimes we may play with video game characters, or watch or read comic books, or watch a movie where women are dressed a certain way or shown a certain way. Like, come on, let's be real. Look at how women are portrayed on movie posters. You know what I mean? When it comes to comic book films and whatnot, they have a very specific pose, right? They're always with their back towards us, so you can see their rear and
Right.
whatnot. Like, women are always put in a way that is, sometimes it's unjust. It's like, yo, you don't have to do that. You don't have to sexualize all these women in certain ways. And it happens in pop culture. It happens in Hollywood. It happens in movies and television. And I like that this movie was like, hey, guess what? We're gonna throw it at you. We're gonna throw it right back at you. You know what I mean? And that's why, like, I like when they said, like, oh, like, you're dressing them a certain way. He goes, well, I didn't do that. And he goes, like, the audience did. And I'm giving the women an opportunity to take it back and to own it, and to
Right.
say, no, like, we're not going to be these objects. We're not going to be these sexual objects. We're going to be fighters. We're going to be warriors. We're going to lean on each other. We're going to be powerful. We're going to be a team, and we're going to succeed together. And we're going to take all those items that we already possess, and we're going to fight. And I
Right.
love it.
Yeah. For me, that you just said it, like, and when I read the quote from Zach, it was hard for me to digest as well, because I was just like, what?
Yeah,
I did,
yeah, yeah.
I
Oh,
did that. And then it was just like, well, think about it. Are you part of the audience? Yeah. Do you consume? Yeah. What do you want to see? And you may not specifically want to see that, but you
mm-hmm,
care more about what you want as the consumer,
mm-hmm,
and it is what it is, and he said it right, certain things sell more than others,
mm-hmm.
and I'm glad you said that. He could have showed them dancing, but he didn't,
He
and
didn't.
this is a man that isn't shy to show love scenes and stuff like that, because he's done it in
No,
prior movies, but he didn't
no.
do it here. Even in the scene um where Babydoll had to give herself up, to the high roller, her virginity was paid for. He still faded to black during that scene. He could have showed
Yep.
it, but he
Yeah.
didn't. He
No.
just I think he just showed them kissing a little bit, and then eventually we did a fade to black, and actually in that moment, that's where the lobotomy happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and it serves as almost, again, it's another metaphor. Like, she's giving that piece of her away. Like, the virginity is that representation of who she is, and she's giving it away. And he's like, I can give you your freedom, but this is what it's going to cost.
Right,
And it's essentially the lobotomy that's taking place at that
right,
moment.
right, and in a way, it's, in the real world, she wants the lobotomy, So she may not have wanted to give herself to the high roller, but she wants her freedom more than anything. So it's just kind of like, you know what? I'm going to do what I got to do so I can get my freedom. So,
Mhm.
she took an awful situation and made it empowering, for herself, like,
Yeah.
um, in the real world, so to speak. So,
Yeah. It's
I,
why that line from Sweet Pea is so important when she takes off the wig. It's because she's about to be lobotomized and she goes, "Cut, really? This is what we're doing?" She goes, "We can come up with something better than this," because she refuses to just accept that part of her life. And that's when the fantasies start. And that's when she's like, "No, let's do this. Let's do that." So she's kind of directing these fantasies in her head, and it's cool.
yeah. I often wondered if this movie had done well financially, if there would have been a sequel or not.
Mhm.
But um, we don't really have to wonder because uh, his track record with Warner Brothers from all his movies that he did eventually landed him the DCEU.
Yeah.
And despite the
Yep.
fact that this wasn't a financial success and Watchmen wasn't really a financial success, um, just the track record of putting out solid movies, um, they gave him a shot at the DCEU. Well, we don't want to get into too much. Maybe once we start,
We'll
going with
save it for yeah, yeah.
there's quite a
Yeah.
story there. Shout out to Christopher Nolan and Nolan We
Mhm.
Trust. That had a little bit to do with it as well. But um, as far as an original film, solid. This is the early 2010s
Mhm.
where that trend of just remakes and reboots, it's full force. And besides
Yep.
Christopher Nolan, nobody else is really doing too many originals. Um, and you would think with this financial and critical success of Inception in 2010 that was
Mhm.
released the year before, that people would have been open to this movie with such deep concepts and such imagery and metaphors, but just things didn't go right for Zach for this movie,
It's
unfortunately.
and I hate to say it, man, because I sound like a broken record, but again, it almost feels like I hate saying it was ahead of its time, but I feel like it's one of those movies that people watch it initially, they go to the theater, they watch it, they're like, "Oh, it looked really cool," but it ended there. So they don't the word of mouth isn't like, "Hey, you gotta go see this movie because this is this." They're like, "Oh yeah, it was pretty decent." It's basically just really good visuals, so like that's about it. And that's not really encouraging to get someone to go see a movie. And I don't know if that had a hand in it, but there's one thing that I always appreciate about Zach's movies is that for whatever reason, there's always a conversation to be had
Right.
regardless of how you felt about it. And I've seen interviews with him where he's been very open about like he wants that. That's what he wants. Majority of the time is for people to come out. He goes, I don't want people to always agree on my movies. He goes, I want there to be a conversation. I want there to be a dialect, and you can agree, you can disagree, and he loves that aspect. And I think that when it comes to movies where you feel more Zach, like you feel more Zach's blueprint, if you will, on the movie, you can feel that need to be like, hey, I just want to get a conversation going. And this
Yeah.
is one of those movies. There's a
And
real conversation to be had.
many of his movies are divisive. So
Very,
he's getting what he wants. That's
very,
the case.
very, very,
Pe-
very.
people are talking. So I remember seeing this. Did you go to the theater to see this?
This one I didn't catch in the theater. This one I caught
Okay.
as soon as it came out.
Okay, then. I saw this in the theater. I think I've seen
Mhm.
every Zack Snyder movie in the movie theater.
Lucky.
So, yeah, yeah. So
That's
I
the
got
only one I haven't seen in the
yeah,
theater.
I
Is
saw this
Sucker
in the
Punch. That's
movie
the
theater.
only
Well,
one.
no, well, only a few people have seen his Justice League in the movie theater. So,
Uh,
because that
his his yeah.
because that
I
was
didn't even
only in
get
New
to see that
York,
one
I
in the
think.
theater. Yeah,
Well,
I
no,
didn't
no,
get
because that
to.
well, no, because that was only like in new select cities or something like that.
Yeah, I got this HBO Max. That was us.
Actually, was it? Did they do that? I think they did it just like New York City or something like that. I need to look
I
that
don't
up.
know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I know after the initial release of HBO Max, certain theaters in certain places were doing like special showings, but it was rare. I couldn't tell you.
yeah, yeah. But in any case, all the movies that were I had the opportunity to see in the movie theater, I did. I remember seeing this, um, directed by Zack Snyder. It was the reason I went. That and the awesome trailers. You will not be prepared. You know,
Yeah.
the trailers were pretty solid actually. Um, the group that I went with, so I enjoyed the visuals. I knew this was the follow up to Watchmen, so that was a divisive reception as far as that movie goes. So, this looked like a little more action packed. I enjoyed some of the cast members. I like Vanessa Hudgens, so I was just like excited to see her in something else. And um, I got out of the theater, and I was a little more excited than the group I was with
It happens.
to talk about it. And I said, okay, it was like, well, it wasn't what I expected, but I kind of still had a good time, and then everyone
Mhm.
else was like, well, at least you did, Anderson,
Yeah, yeah. At least you liked
so
it.
it's kind of
Yeah.
a downer. You want to talk about it, but everybody else is bummed out. So I didn't really go into it too much, so, um, you know, upon I was disappointed in a couple different things. Like they
Mhm.
were kind of nitpicks, so to speak. But since then, it's just like the movie's grown on me.
Yeah.
And, um, and the older I get, regardless of how I personally feel about a film, I still give credit when it's an original now. I
Yeah.
give credit, when it's original. And Zach made for an original film in 2011,
Mhm.
not bad as far as, in the grand scheme of things, not bad in my opinion,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
know many people have told me that out of his filmography, they think that that's his weakest.
Right.
If
And
they
that's
look at
fine.
everything, yeah, and which is totally fair. Like you're completely fair in doing so. Like if I actually made a list, I
Right.
don't know where it would rank. So like it might quite possibly for me as well be in the lower tier when it comes
Right.
to like Zack Snyder films. I don't know. I've never actually sat and thought about it.
Right.
But yeah, I think that, and I know that over years I've seen it on social media as well, that Sucker Punch has started to gain more of a cult following than it did, when it first came out. And
Right.
that's really cool. And I think that that's also something Zach has endured as well. That I know that there are certain movies that when they first come out, there's a certain reaction, but over time, people kind of go, huh, like they kind of catch up to it. Like
Right.
I know that happened with Watchmen. I know that happened with Man of Steel now more than ever, where there's been more and more people coming around to what he was doing, what he was trying to say. And I think this is one of those movies too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to be fair, most of his movies are remakes or based on properties.
Mhm.
So people are going to have a stronger feeling towards properties that they know and they're familiar with. You know, your George Romero fans, they're going to like Dawn of the Dead more.
Yep.
Your Watchmen fans are going to like Watchmen more. Your DC fans, they're probably going to like Man of Steel or BVS or his Justice League more. So it's very easy to say um, that Sucker Punch is his weakest film when all these other 300,
Yeah.
even if you have no idea what the comic book that was based on, it was just so epic, so it's very easy to say that this is weakest film, but you know, regardless if it is or not, um, to me, A for effort because it was original.
Mhm.
He did a lot of things that a lot of people weren't doing at the time with the all woman cast and with the fantasy and all the mix of it's like, what genre film would you like to make, Zach? Yes.
Yes. Yes. That's it. Yes. And
Yes.
and 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 we've heard Zach in interviews. Sometimes Zach will just say, "We're gonna do this because it's awesome," right? Like he'll say that. So I can just imagine what he was telling these actors and saying, like, Emily, this is what we're gonna do. You're
Yeah.
gonna fight 3 giant samurai because it's gonna look so awesome. You know what I mean? Like I can see him doing that, but it's gonna mean this, and this is gonna be important. But think how great this is gonna look. And she looked great, man. They all did. They all looked amazing doing these action sequences. And it's one of the reasons why, like, the train sequence is probably my favorite because the way it's shot, it's almost shot like one long continuous take. And the way the camera goes in and out of these fight scenes, and you got Rocket who's doing like flips through the air while opening shots, and her other sisters
Yeah.
fighting. It just looks so
Wild.
great. It's the one scene in the movie where they feel so united, because in other scenes they're separated. You have some in the plane, you have some over here, you have some over there. But in the train sequence, like you have so many people that are just in the train at one time. You have the main three that are just going pa 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 all together. And I was like, man, it was great. It was great. And I know that he probably had a great time pitching that to all the actors involved. Like, yo, we're gonna make you do some cool stuff.
Yeah. I Upon hearing that Amanda Seyfried was up for Babydoll, that's
Hmm.
always going to be a big what if for me because it's not like I didn't enjoy Emily Browning. She was awesome as the lead.
Hmm.
She delivered a bit of a stoic performance for me, and stoic performances are hit or miss for me. That's just how I.
Very.
That's a personal. you know, thing with me. And Amanda Seyfried is anything but stoic in her
Yeah.
roles. She's
Yeah.
very expressive. She has these big eyes,
The eyes,
she,
right? Yeah.
she's got this, was this way about her, and it could be the way Babydoll is written because of the trauma she's been through. We'll never
True.
know, but we know Amanda Seyfried can sing,
Yeah.
so we know she would have been able to do that too. So it's just a big what if for me, like to the point of maybe the movie would have done better with someone else in the I don't know. I don't wanna do that
It's
to Emily Browning, I don't wanna do
Yeah,
I don't wanna do that to her.
it's true because, like, imagine if Emma Stone was in here. Emma Stone
Right.
was a pretty decent name, like, she was
Yeah.
doing pretty well for herself, she was doing comedic roles, she was funny, Easy A was hilarious, and she was, she was getting there, and she's got star power now, and, like, who knows? Maybe if
Yeah,
the cast
it would have been
could have
Evan
done
Rachel
something.
Wood, Emma Stone, Abby Cornish, and, Amanda Seyfried,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. It could have been a very different game, a very different one.
Yeah, it would have been solid. Let me double check that. Yeah.
Yeah, but they were great, and again, like, it was
Yeah. Oh, and
it
Vanessa Hudgens, she was always supposed to be in it.
oh, yeah, yeah.
So no one else was gonna play her role, so it was always gonna be.
I was happy for Vanessa too because again, up to that point, a lot of people still associated her
Yeah.
with High School Musical. Like it was very hard for her to get away from that. So I remember seeing the trailers and I was like, "Oh wait, Vanessa Hudgens is in this,
Yeah.
like doing cool fight scenes and doing this and action." And I was like, "That looks
Yeah.
great."
And she's had a few roles here and there, but not quite the career that her co-star, um, Zach,
Zac Efron,
Zac Efron has had,
Zac Efron.
so,
Yeah,
um, but that was really cool. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, the cast would have been Abby Cornish, Evan Rachel Wood, um, Emma Stone, Vanessa Hudgens, and Amanda Seyfried. Like, wow.
that's a completely different
What
lineup.
if he got that cast? Maybe the movie would have done better. Who knows? You know
Yeah,
what I'm
like
saying?
we'll never know. Like I'm happy for the cast that we got because
Yes,
like
absolutely.
they've like especially Jamie Chung because I
Oh,
remember
yes.
I used to be one of those people who watch Real World and I remember Jamie wanting to be an actor and so when I saw her getting jobs I was like wait a minute she made it like she got to go from Real World and make it, like when I think of Real World, I think of like guys like The Miz who made it into a WWE superstar, and I think
Right.
Jamie Chung who made it into film and television, and she was great. She was in Lovecraft Country, and she was awesome. Like Jamie has grown through the years, and who's to say those things would have come to pass if Zach didn't give her this opportunity
Correct.
in Sucker Punch? You know what I mean? It's really cool.
Absolutely, and of course, Emma Stone, she's gone on to have an incredible career,
Hmm.
Oscar winner, so, not being in this movie didn't hurt her. Evan Rachel Wood's done well for herself as
Yep.
well. It just would have been a completely different cast, and who knows? But that's okay because we got who we got,
Yep.
and um, alrighty, well, we're gonna start wrapping things up here. Any closing? Well, actually, yeah, that's it. Any closing thoughts on Sucker Punch before we get out of here, Ricardo?
Man, if you guys got any other theories other than the one I said, please leave them in the comments because I would love to theorize. Because again, in my opinion, Sweet Pea and Babydoll are the same person.
Yeah,
That's my take. She knew that the lobotomy was the only way she would gain freedom from all those horrible memories. So she's like, I'm gonna build a fantasy world. This is gonna be my escape. I'm gonna give you the look of approval. Like now it's time to go. Go ahead and do the lobotomy. I am free. My mind is free. Y'all got any more theories? Do it. But again, closing thoughts overall. It was great to get an original film. I think for his first original film, not bad, not bad at all. Great visual effects that look phenomenal to this day. Again, I love the all-female cast. I like that Zach is always ready to have people watch his movies and have a discussion. So, it might not be on the top of my Zack Snyder list or many other Zack Snyder lists, but I respect the hustle. I respect it. I'm glad he found Oscar Isaac for me because I didn't
There
know
we go.
Oscar Isaac before this. I did not know who he was before this, and I'm glad to see his career take off as well as the others. And I'm happy that Zach takes chances on actors that may not be box office names or draws, and he's like this is my cast. This is what I'm going to go with. So I appreciate that about this movie and his other movies as well. And Carla, I love her. I'm good. I'm good now.
For me, Sucker Punch, I consider Sucker Punch a guilty pleasure.
Okay.
It may be it's becoming a cult classic. That's what
Mhm.
you know. We say that about films that don't do too well when they're released, but eventually they start being embraced.
Mhm.
Um, Shawshank Redemption comes to mind. That movie didn't really make too didn't not too much attention when it came out. It didn't do well at the box office either, but it's considered one of the greatest films of all time now. So,
Yep.
uh, is is that what's gonna happen to Sucker Punch one day? No, I'm not saying that. We're not saying that rather. Um, but it's funny to see that's, films when they're not received well when they come out, eventually they become cult classics due to home release and
Mhm.
rentals and such. So alrighty. So that's it for our discussion on Sucker Punch.
Yeah.
Folks, I wanted to thank you for viewing and for listening to us. Please give us a like, share, and subscribe on YouTube at The Panel Bros if you support what we're doing. If you wanted to share your theories or your thoughts on our discussion about Sucker Punch, please feel free to do so in the comments below. We are continuing with the filmography highlights of Zack Snyder. And next up, we have the DCEU. Those are going to be fun.
Oh yeah.
Cannot wait to get to those. But until then, I wanted to say for Ricardo Segura, this is Anderson Marchak saying thank you for coming to the panel.